As the year end approached, I found myself thrust into the harsh winter of the workplace laid off by the company. During those days, the atmosphere in the office was suffocating, as if a heavy, looming cloud hovered above us, ready to descend at any moment. Whispers of layoffs spread like an infectious disease, seeping into every corner of the company. CEO William, along with a group of senior executives, shut themselves in the meeting room for 3 straight days and nights. Their conclusion, framed under the noble pretext of expanding revenue and cutting costs, was clear to everyone it was nothing more than an excuse to drastically reduce the workforce. One by one, colleagues were called into the office for talks. Every time someone returned, their furrowed brows and grim expressions acted as silent alarms, making the rest of us more nervous with each passing minute. Everyone sat at their desks uneasily, silently wondering if they would be the next one on the chopping block. After all, getting laid off at this point meant that any hope of receiving a year-end bonus was completely dashed. In this tense atmosphere, I too began to feel anxious, my heart lodged in my throat, jumping from one thought to another, unable to settle. Sure enough, not long after, I received a message from my department head Victoria, 12th floor, meeting room 1201. The moment I saw that message, my heart sank, and the first thought that flashed through my mind was, "Oh no, my year-end bonus is in jeopardy." Nervously, I made my way to the meeting room, where only Victoria sat, quietly waiting. Her expression was calm, and there was no hint of emotion on her face. It seemed like she had simply called me in to discuss my daily work progress, but the calmer she appeared, the more uneasy I felt. "Emma, you've been with our department for 5 years, haven't you?" Victoria asked. "Yes, that's right, Supervisor," I replied cautiously, my voice betraying my nerves. "Over the past 5 years, you've worked diligently, and your achievements are evident to everyone," she continued. "Your team leader is leaving due to personal reasons. After discussions with other leaders, we've decided to offer you the position of team leader." I could hardly believe my ears. My eyes widened in shock as I stared at her, questioning whether I had misheard. The suddenness of this news felt like a blinding light after crawling through darkness for so long. "Starting next month, you'll be the team leader for our department. I hope you can lead the team to even greater success," Victoria said, breaking into a rare smile. In that moment, I almost jumped out of my chair in excitement. 5 long years of struggling in the professional swamp, and now I was finally going to break through. Over the years, I had adapted and changed like a chameleon to meet the demands of my job. Hardware development, market analysis, assisting HR with personnel change tasks that were never part of my original duty shed gradually become part of my daily routine. Countless times, after working late into the night, I would gaze at the empty office with a heart full of despair. I felt that no matter how much I learned or how hard I worked, I would never get the attention I deserved from my superiors and CEO. I even considered that this job might be as good as it gets and thought about simply going with the flow. But now the gears of fate had shifted and I had finally seen the light. Caught up in the excitement, I immediately thought of my stagnant salary over the past 5 years and eagerly asked, "Supervisor, how much of a raise will I get with this promotion?" As soon as the words left my mouth, Victoria's expression darkened. Her brows furrowed deeply, and the complex look on her face left me unsure of what was going through her mind. "Emma, as you know, the company's current situation is far from ideal," she said slowly. I immediately understood the unspoken message was implying that while I'd be promoted, there would be no salary increase. Reluctantly, I gathered my courage and replied, "Supervisor, after all these years of hard work, shouldn't I get some tangible reward?" Victoria's expression turned awkward, and she took a barely noticeable deep breath before coldly replying, "Not right now." She then motioned for me to leave. Back at my desk, I couldn't stop replaying her words in my mind. The more I thought about it, the more unfair it seemed, and I clenched my fists in frustration. But little did I know, the real bad news was only just beginning. Later in the afternoon, HR's Lisa called me in for a chat. She asked me to come to her office. The door was slightly ajar, and as I knocked lightly, her voice came from the other side. "Come in." I walked in, my mind racing with thoughts of how I could bring up the salary increase during our conversation, taking each step carefully, as though walking on thin ice, afraid of making the wrong move. "You must be aware that the company is currently undergoing a downsizing," Lisa said bluntly. At those words, my heart dropped. What had been a boiling cauldron of anger now froze instantly. My whole body felt cold, and the realization hit me hard. "Emma, we've been watching your performance, but—" Lisa's tone suddenly became heavy. My forehead broke into a cold sweat, and it felt like the room was closing in on me. "This is a decision made by the higher-ups. Unfortunately, you are on the layoff list." Those few words, short yet cruel, felt like a sharp blade stabbing straight into my heart. They cruelly severed the respect and effort I had built up over the past 5 years. I jumped up from my seat, trembling as I asked, "How could this happen? Victoria just told me this morning that I was getting promoted." "The company has suddenly decided to shift its business direction. The entire department is being cut, and the leadership made this decision after careful consideration," Lisa responded coldly. At that moment, my mind went blank. I stood there, frozen, my throat tight, unable to say a word. Was this really the end result of 5 years of hard work in the corporate world? I wanted to ask for more details, but the words caught in my throat. The truth was clear. As an employee making a meager $3,000 a month, always on time, diligently working for 5 years, I had dared to request a raise. "We will compensate you according to the N+1 formula. You can start packing up your things and prepare for handover. Come by before the end of the day to collect your termination papers." Lisa said these words without sparing me another glance. And as she began organizing her desk, I finally understood how insignificant I truly was. As I sat back down at my desk, I felt the eyes of my colleagues on me. Their expressions were a mix of sympathy and caution, and I knew they were silently wondering if they would be next. But now, none of that mattered to me. I smiled as I turned on my computer, ready to begin the handover process. I created a list of task hardware development, market analysis, personnel management, 3 main categories with 8 sub-projects, and I had to say goodbye to each one. Just before the end of the day, as I frantically typed away to finish the handover documents, I looked at the clock. It was already 5:40 p.m. I quickly grabbed my phone and sent Lisa a message. "Lisa, I haven't finished organizing the handover documents yet. Can I extend my departure time?" Not long after, the phone rang. Lisa's voice was impatient as she answered, "How could you still not be done after the whole afternoon? What have you been doing?" I immediately felt anger rising in my chest. The projects I'm responsible for are the most complex. How could I finish everything in one afternoon? "Enough!" Lisa interrupted sharply. "You need to leave today. No excuses. Your last day is today. Understood? We have rules, and you can't hold up other people's work. Come here now and get your termination papers." "Fine. Since the company says so, I have nothing else to say. The handover documents are on my computer. You can handle them yourself." I slammed the phone down, shutting off my computer, leaving behind no trace of the 5 years I had spent there. As I walked through the door of my home, I had planned to rest for a couple of months before looking for a new job. But reality hit. I hadn't saved enough money, and my financial situation couldn't afford such a luxury. So, after the Spring Festival, I returned to New York with the wave of other job seekers. At first, my goal was simply to find a new job. But soon, I noticed that many companies were particularly interested in the inner workings of my former company, Teknova. Interviewers' questions were sharp and focused, mainly on Teknova's strategic decisions, product development processes, and market positioning strategies. Initially, I thought it was just a coincidence. Until one day, during an interview, an old colleague who had once worked with Teknova revealed, almost casually, that his company was willing to pay a hefty price for professional analysis and predictions about Teknova and the industry trends. At that moment, the realization hit me hard. If so many companies were willing to pay large sums for insights into Teknova and the tech industry, then my background and expertise were exactly what they needed. This was an enormous business opportunity. I quickly began compiling my thoughts and experiences from the past 5 years, planning to provide an in-depth analysis and forecast of industry trends. Just as I was getting started, Victoria's call came through,